Demon Slayer has been one of my favorite series to follow over the past 2 anime seasons. I did expect to enjoy gorgeous animation from Studio Ufotable, of course, and I heard solid enough things about its characters to get me excited before it originally started airing. But I never expected to fall in love with this series as much as I did, and most importantly, so early on into its run. The first episode immediately gripped me with its brutal environment and how they tortured its main character Tanjiro right off the bat by eliminating most of his family, with the last member forced down a demon path fighting to hold on to the little of humanity that she had left. But the following few episodes felt a lot less serious in tone, with more shonen design comedy like you're typically used to with the genre and magazine it runs in for its source material. But what took me by surprise the most was how quickly my entertained but cautious mind couldn't get enough Demon Slayer that before its first cour even wrapped up, I was giving praise that I've really only given to series such as Fullmetal Alchemist in the past. The biggest draw to this series from a bird's eye view will be the fights and how they are animated to no one's surprise. The main difference between the combat scene in Demon Slayer and your average battle shonen is how well detailed and planned every combat scenario actually is. Right away, the viewer learns about the demons and their hunter mechanics, the enhanced senses the hunters possess, which in the case for our lead Tanjiro, he has enhanced sense of smell, with also the different sword techniques they all master, with the demons and all their rankings with supposedly only the head man in charge Muzan having the skills to turn others into demons if the victim is worthy. You learn all the basics you'd expect to set up a world and its characters so you can piece together how combat scenarios will play out. The big difference between Demon Slayer's combat and most run-of-the-mill battle series is how they don't stop there. The first area I really want to compliment is the difference in structure to each fight up to this point. From a visual level, to no one's surprise, the demons all look different. Different sizes would have different levels of strength is what you're typically used to, and if they have a unique ability, they generally come across as a poorly designed video game boss battle with one or two easy to dodge moves. But the few fights I'm about to highlight have nearly an unlimited amount of scenarios because of how well detailed the mechanics given to Tanjiro's opponents are, allowing for the sky to be the limit for fights. One of the weakest battles in the first season had my jaw on the floor as I watched it. That's just how brilliant the action is. Even the weakest of fights are phenomenal. Tanjiro eventually goes up against two demons who complement the other with their abilities. One has few too many arms and a killer dodgeball throw, with the other having the ability to control the direction of seemingly anything with his arrows. Add these together and a few dodgeball looking objects become something next to impossible to dodge, with the force of the impact easily being able to kill you or at the very least rip you apart. The fight begins as a game of cat and mouse, as characters cower to take cover, and then Tanjiro has to devise a plan to not only fight these creatures, but win. Eventually they get broken up and Tanjiro is forced to face the directional opponent with his sister Nezuko playing a friendly game of dodgeball. Now Nezuko's side of things is fairly straightforward of who is faster and stronger than who before an intoxicating aroma leads to the demon's demise. But Tanjiro's side of things is still mesmerizing even after all these weeks. These arrows force him in every direction imaginable, and rather than letting him get tossed around and recover, with no penalties he nearly gets ripped apart and crushed back to back. When he uses different skills to escape the arrows, he gets tossed right back in the air to come crashing down, or gets strangled by them. The brilliance to this fight is not only is it terrifying, it pushes Tanjiro to his breaking limit and forces him to think on the fly like no point before, combining all these moves just to break the fall to be able to outplay a man he shouldn't be able to. And the sheer speed he combines and comes up with these plays has the viewer uncertain who has the edge during the final few minutes. When the battle is all said and done, everyone suffered, wounds are felt and seen, and the impossible duo allowed for our main character to get his first true taste of the new world that he's now a part of. Later on, Tanjiro fights an opponent who hits different areas of his body to either shift the rotation of the building, launch attacks, or transport them to other areas of their current building. The foe just has to stand there and play music. He easily keeps Tanjiro at bay and come close to ending him with pretty much every single move that he makes. The way perspective and rotation is played around with allows for everyone to feel dizzy and uncertain to what Tanjiro's next move should be or even can be. Unlike the previous battle, he isn't being tossed around like before. Everything spins so fast and so much you never get a foot on the ground before it's warped again. Instead of just being hurt by the impact, your head can't keep up with the shift of gravity. Anytime he gets close to a single strike, you send him right back to the end and end up wounded even more. Tanjiro eventually uses his experience from his previous battle, and with the right combination of moves gets close enough for the kill. Even though he is still wounded from a prior fight, he manages to get close enough because of the demon's own past craving praise for his art, which luckily for Tanjiro he didn't step on his writing, making his guard drop momentarily. The way Tanjiro interacted with him played into a desire to be praised for his art in a way that no one did up to that point in his life. Even though there are similarities to Tanjiro escaping a situation with a mixed match of moves and careful planning, the route to get there ultimately felt different, especially with how they added in the emotional touch being within the battle rather than at the end, such as with the previous fight I just mentioned, to how they eventually end up in a spider's web, where other demon slayers are being manipulated by a queen and her family who controls their actions with carefully laid web, which forces the cast to not only fight for their lives, but figure out a way to fight their opponents who also happen to be their comrades. Not only does this setting push everyone's backs against a wall, it makes it so they can't fight to their full potential unless the queen and her children are dealt with, which truth be told is a terrifying battle that continues to make characters dodge rather than attack, as even when they do, spiders will just reattach the string, placing them back to square one or some other unfortunate event. You can focus on the opponents you can kill, but the question is, can you get to them? And even if you do, can you land a strike before you get manipulated or something worse? Eventually forcing the characters to use that manipulation to their advantage, else face death himself. But even when your allies are no longer a threat, it doesn't mean their challenge stops there. Manipulation breaking any limits a body has makes this fight truly horrifying with each opponent that we meet. All three of these fights I just mentioned all have unique mechanics: the control of direction and the combination of powers, the warping of perspective and gravity, and manipulation of your own free will. But rather than just letting the mechanics stun you, the environments play an equal part and importance to the combat. Each fight not only functions different than the last, they also feel vastly different. The first is in an open yard. Now I do joke about it feeling like a dodgeball game, but it really does feel like a deadly game of the sport. Having the openness allows for the directional pull to feel more intense than in a closed-in environment. Being inside would limit Tanjiro to having any real options, as without the space to use his techniques, this battle would have been over before it even began. With on the demon side of things, allowing that space to deliver even more impact as nothing can brace the fall or punch to their attacks. The second location feels as if you're in a house of mirrors. Every time you believe you know where you are, you might end up in another part of the building, or maybe you're falling to the ceiling. The rotation and direction manipulation couldn't work outside. Unlike the arrows, this ability is focused on the building, not sending an arrow to control his direction. As even if this power worked on the world as a whole, if he flipped the gravitational pull on the outside, then Tanjiro would have just fallen towards space and he would have died. The closed-in environment of a normal building makes you feel claustrophobic, as if with every beat of the drum is a beat that could end this battle, such as the hunter playing with his prey. With the gloomy forest filled with spiders feeling like a haunted forest. Being controlled in sunlight would honestly feel pretty lame and not that frightening. But trapping your cast in a forest where trees surround every which way you look, meaning a little spider that could control your movements may be under anything, making them near impossible to find. To the main foes lingering in the trees and the shadows, it plays a part in not letting the characters see what's happening, while most importantly making them and the viewers scared, not knowing what to do. Often I find action in anime quite boring, as even some of Ufotable's best animation hasn't done much for me, as yeah, it was pretty sure, but where was the depth to these sequences that I really crave? Having that extra layer to these battles helps shape Demon Slayer into something where action feels as fleshed out as any piece of the character's dialogue. Now, the one aspect I haven't touched upon which seals the deal is the characters themselves. It's all well and good to have well-planned action and battle mechanics overall, but unless the characters themselves are likable, who really cares who makes it out alive at the end of the day? The main lead Tanjiro is one of my favorite protagonists in a battle shonen I've ever seen. The concept to his character is how he doesn't belong in this world. He naturally is a family man, but knowing his last living sister is a demon and potentially she might be able to return to a human one day is his drive to join an organization he was never meant to be a part of. There's potential in his way of thinking strategically very early on, but his personality isn't what you'd expect a demon hunter to be. The way he gradually but also quickly becomes someone who kicks ass and takes names is very well done. His personal and very relatable motivation of family doesn't come across as your standard cliche revenge story, but rather one driven by love, and he would become anything to save her. His heightened sense of smell and determination to break his body into one more suitable to protect Nezuko makes you root for him from basically near minute one. He struggles with each episode, and in the early stages you question, is there any way he'll actually make it? But that love that fuels him allows Tanjiro to become someone at first we didn't believe in, into someone we trust can rise to be one of the best hunters in realistic ways. The potential was always there, but the drive to reach this level he is aiming for wasn't until Nezuko's curse. Now Nezuko herself is a silent protagonist, someone who doesn't speak. The few noises she makes are either cute or frightening, meaning she really should just be a tag-along object, not a character due to this handicap. But with how early on she comes across as someone completely different than every demon we see week by week, she starts to open up in a way that we feel like Tanjiro, knowing what this demon sister is thinking just by the subtle movements she makes episode by episode. She refuses to eat humans early on, and that love we clearly see from Tanjiro is mirrored through Nezuko's actions by how hard she fights against her demonic urges. Between the two's continuing brother and sister bond, we have a goal we root for, meaning the battles have consequences should Tanjiro lose, with the simple scenes between them having a loving aura you don't see enough of in anime, where it feels like a genuine brother and sister. You have the coward Zensu, who may be too overboard for some at the beginning with how much of a coward he is, but for myself I love this little scared ball personality from minute one. A big draw to Zensu is his comedy. Both he and Tanjiro don't belong in the demon hunting world, but somehow got roped in. Where with Tanjiro he rises to the role at a steady pace, Zensu is still terrified, and due to the fear of being killed because of his job, he lashes out or flirts a little too hard for his own good. Having someone like Tanjiro who helps ease his mind or at times slap some sense into him allows for his personality to bounce off him and the others in a fascinating way that forms interesting dynamics. When Zensu is passed out, he naturally can defend himself and potentially is stronger than Tanjiro, at least when his mind is dormant. He's a very extreme character, which is why I totally understand if his persona is too extreme for some. But when I see how far he's willing to go for someone like Tanjiro or anyone he cares for, you see behind the coward is a true hero waiting to blossom. With lastly, Inosuke being the Tasmanian devil of the show, who my lord I adore. He loves to fight, he doesn't understand feelings, and when you ask too many questions he'll probably assault you. But watching someone who almost feels like an animal rise to be a human slowly but surely, as when you have someone like Tanjiro who can ease you into humanity, as growing up as he did with younger siblings, it helps with troubled people such as himself, or at times be too dense for his own good that somehow still helps him in a bizarre way. It's fascinating watching a different kind of extreme bounce off our central lead and how he can grow to not only be a more genuine hero for the cause, but more of a person who understands emotions, even though with this crew you will have more arguments than casual small talk. All three are capable in battle, with some needing certain requirements to be met in order to really be effective, but their unique personalities mesh into one crazy supergroup that is more dysfunctional than not, but when they work together really becomes something special, meaning you always root for them even when they get on your nerves. Between the stunning character relationships with the heartfelt and time-bomb mechanics, it allows for gut-punching scenes to make you laugh out loud or feeling deep-rooted emotions making us crush in sorrow or burn with rage, making scenes both in and out of action gripping during every episode, with the careful direction of action being more than just a 1-2 punch, but using the environments to their advantage, having teamwork, or giving a multitude of moves to their opponents. No fight feels like a one-trick pony. With the added layer of humanity to these demons, it makes death scenes quite tragic, as at one point they were human. They didn't ask for this, but unfortunately they had to die, keeping the focus on Nezuko as she could easily become what it is they're forced to kill along the way, making the passing scenes with Tanjiro truly touching your heart even more than they already were. I feel as if, similar to heavy hitters such as Fullmetal Alchemist, Demon Slayer does have aspects that many shonens are known for, such as the extreme reactions for comedy or the over-the-top fights, but because many areas were either changed or reworked completely different, rather than feeling as if we walk out feeling like it's another battle series of the week, I personally walk out feeling as if we might be seeing a classic in the making. With the right formula, you can truly hook the masses, and with such varied personalities and creative fights that few anime can compete with, as even if you match the written creativity, few studios will be able to blend 2D and 3D in such a creative way to create these dynamic visuals that let the viewer feel as if they are a part of this world. You simply feel as if it's nothing short of masterclass, or at least I do. If we look back at the catalog of anime and manga, we'll see so many classic series newcomers still foam at the mouth over, but it feels as if modern anime can't capture that same magic, or so we think. But all that's actually happening is when we first got into the medium, we had a harvest at our fingertips, meaning we could experience 10 quality shows within a week, not understanding the space between them and the next big thing. To me, what we're currently seeing with Demon Slayer is the start of one of those series, that years from now, a bunch of new fans will be getting into anime, watching their Fullmetal Alchemists and Hunter x Hunters of the world, and Demon Slayer will be among those recommendations of don't skip these gems. But hey, that's just my opinion anyway. But I'd love to hear yours if you have any thoughts on Demon Slayer or this video down in that comment section below. If you enjoyed my ramblings, be sure to leave a like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you have been new around here. Lastly, there's my Patreon for those who want to go the extra mile and help support what I do around here even more. But until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.